Hey, today I want to share with you kind of a follow-up to the last video I did on a Memphis style dry rib. Well, today I'm going to do a Kansas City style rib. And the biggest difference in the Kansas City style rib is that it's finished with a sweet tomato sauce, and that's kind of more of the line of a competition style rib, and you can find these at rib places all over Kansas City. They're famous for them. The Kansas City style rib is traditionally a spare rib. You don't see many loin ribs out in Kansas City, and that's what I have today. I've got some Compar Duroc St. Louis cut spare ribs, and this would be something typical that you would find at a restaurant when you order a rack of ribs. You can see I just kind of squared them up a little bit, and I've also pulled the membrane off both sides of these ribs so they're ready to go. You can cook a whole rack of spare ribs, St. Louis cut. You know, if you want to leave the membrane on, that's fine with you. I don't want to eat them membrane, it's tough. When you chew it, you can't bite it, and so either you're going to have to score it or you're going to have to pull it off, and it's easy to pull off. So the first thing you want to do with this Kansas City style ribs is get a good rub on it, and I've got a couple different rubs that I'm going to use today. These are found in Kansas City, Smoking Guns rubs. They're real popular on the barbecue circuit, but they also have a restaurant in Kansas City area serving some top-notch barbecue. The two I'm going to be using today are the Smoking Guns Sweet Heat. That's going to be my first layer, and then to give it a little bit of pop, I'm going to come back and I'm going to give it a light coat of the Smoking Guns Hot, and that's going to kind of bring a little bit of pepperiness with it. And don't worry about it being too hot, because we're going to finish this with a sweet tomato sauce at the end that's going to tone all that out, balance it, and it's going to be really good. So we're going to start with the Sweet Heat first. When you're doing these ribs, you know, you can use any kind of seasonings you want. You don't have to use the exact ones I'm using, as long as it's just a good balance of flavors and it goes with pork. We'll light that in, we're going to flip them over. Light coating on this side. You don't want to go too heavy because we don't want the rubs to burn. You notice I'm not using a binder. That's something that typically they don't do in restaurants. Competitions, you'll see us using mustard or olive oil or peanut oil, different things. But when you're cooking these at home, or you want to kind of duplicate the restaurant style of rib that you'll find out in Kansas City, you don't have to use any kind of binder for your rubs, as long as you let them sit a little while. Now I'm going to let these set for 3 to 4 hours, let the rubs work on them, get some flavors in. It's going to pull some moisture out of the meat, and then it's going to kind of bind itself. We're going to put one more layer of rub on these ribs. This is going to be the little bit of heat that I'm adding, and this is also the Smoking Guns rub. And I'm just going real light with this one. Just another layer. Same thing for the top side. Okay, now that we have the rub on these ribs, they need to hang out in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 hours. So it gives me a little while before I start my grill, but we're going to let these rest, and we'll show you the cooking process in just a few minutes. Okay, our rub is worked on these St. Louis cut Kansas City style ribs for about 4 hours. I took them out of the refrigerator 3.5 hour mark. I wanted them to come up to room temp. You can see the rubs already started pulling some moisture out of these ribs, and that's what you want to see. You want it to kind of melt everything, start penetrating that meat, then we're going to get it on our cooker. Now today I'm cooking these on a old hickory CTO. I'm using a little bit of hickory wood for the wood smoke, but I'm using charcoal as my fuel base. So I'll run the pit for spare ribs right at 250, about the same as I would for loin back ribs. We're going to put them on here. We're going to let them cook for, about 1.5 hours, 2 hours. We'll watch them, and then I'll start spritzing them with a little apple juice. I don't use a mopping sauce or anything on these Kansas City style ribs. It's just about starting to get that sweet flavor going. The apple juice moistens them up just enough, and then it'll kind of help with kind of a mahogany effect. The sugars in that juice is going to start to brown just a little bit. We don't want them black, we want them a perfect mahogany. We'll get them closed up and get them cooking here. Okay, so I got the Kansas City style ribs on the CTO. It's set at 250 degrees, got a little hickory wood on there. We're going to check them about 1.5 hours, 2 hours, keep an eye on them. When they start getting to look a little dry, we're going to get apple juice in a spray bottle, and I'll show you how we spritz them, so hang around. Okay, it's been about 1.5 hours on these Kansas City style ribs. We're going to peek at them and see if they need spritzing. And I've just got a regular, spray bottle with some apple juice in it, and that's all we're going to put on top of these ribs. I just want to keep them from getting too dry. Let me pull them out here so we can look at them. You can see how it's starting to get, you know, a little dry. It's not bad. This is exactly what the point you want to do it. But you want to keep that moist, and it'll keep it from turning too dark. We're getting a really good color on these ribs, but now we just want to mist them down with this apple juice. Keep some moisture on them. And apple juice isn't adding much flavor, but it has enough sugar in it to where it's going to start browning up a little bit too. So we're going to get some color from it. These will be just where we want them. I want to keep an eye on these ribs, you know, about every 45 minutes to an hour. I don't want them to get too dark. So we'll close them back up. Come check in another hour. We're at the hour-and-a-half mark. So we've got about 4.5, 5 hours to get these totally cooked. Not going to wrap them. I'm just going to keep spraying them, keep them nice and moist, letting them cook. That's going to be the kind of the traditional Kansas City way to cook spare ribs. Stick around. Okay, it's been 45 minutes on these Kansas City style ribs, and just want to keep them. They're looking good. I'm starting to see a little bit of pullback on these bones. That's what I'm looking for. Total cook times, just at 2 hours 15 minutes. So we still got a little ways to go. Probably another hour and 45 minutes. But I'm just going to keep looking at them, basting them, keeping them nice and moist. Don't have to add any more rub or anything. Get them closed back up. We'll check them again in another 45 minutes. So they're looking exactly like we want them. I'd like to see the total cook time be about 4 hours, 4.5. That'll be perfect for these Kansas City style ribs. We are going to glaze them with the light sauce at the very end. That's what really sets them apart. Adds a sweetness to it, and I'll show you that here in just a little bit. Stick around. All right. It's been about 4 hours on these St. Louis ribs. I'm ready to check them out. We're starting to get a little separation here. I want to see that. I want them to be tender, but I want them to be to where I can pull them, and these aren't quite. I'm forcing them just a little bit to get that tear, so they need just a little bit longer. So we're going to spritz them just one more time. Check this slab just to make sure. I mean, you like to have a break when you support it, so they're starting to right here. But these are close. We got maybe 30 more minutes. I'm going to get some spritz on them one last time. Then it'll be time to glaze these dudes. We really built the layers of flavors up with the rub that we put on there, the two types, and this apple juice mist we've been hitting them with every 45 minutes. These are going to be good. Let's close them up. Another half hour, it'll be time to glaze these Kansas City style spare ribs. All right, I'm fixing to get these Kansas City style spare ribs off the cooker here. I'm going to take them inside and show you how I'm going to finish them up with a little sauce. And we'll put them back on the rack just long enough to let the sauce caramelize just a little bit, but these are pretty much done. Okay, now our Kansas City style spare ribs are just about done. The last step, which really makes these a Kansas City rib, is to get a sauce on them. Every time I've been to a restaurant in Kansas City, the ribs have been served with a sauce that's kind of glazed on a little bit. And you can use whatever your favorite sauce is here. I'm using one of Butcher Barbecue's sweet sauce, and I think this really kind of says Kansas City to me when I taste it. So I think it's gonna look real good on these ribs. I'm gonna get them back on the cooker once I get a light coat of sauce on them. You notice I'm not just dousing them. This is, a real light coat. It's gonna make some of that sweetness shine through. Kind of a ketchup based sauce, but it looks real pretty. I'll come back with a little on this slab. Just kind of get it brushed on a little bit. Bone shined up. All right, these ribs are ready to go. Right back out on the CTO, and I need 10-15 minutes tops. So they're going to be glazed perfect. Sauce is going to caramelize just a little bit. We'll be ready to bring them in and try them. I'm going to cut some and show you what they look like. Let's get them back outside just for a few minutes. Okay, I've got the Kansas City style ribs right back on the smoker after we put the glaze on them. They're just going to need 10, maybe 15 minutes. I don't want the cooker real hot. Let it die down to about 215 degrees. It's going to glaze that sauce, and those will be ready to come inside. We'll cut them up just a second so you can see how good they look. Okay, it's time to get these Kansas City style ribs off this cooker after they've glazed 15 minutes. Ooh, they look good. Right where you can see them, how pretty they are. Sauce tackied up just enough, not too dark. These are ready to go inside. All right, here's the finished product on these Kansas City style ribs that we did, the spare ribs. You can see the sauce set on them really nice, and that's really that's the unique thing about Kansas City style ribs is that sweet sauce that they cook on them. So I'm gonna cut a few of these up here. You know, we're gonna try them, see how they turned out. Man, they got a pretty smoke ring. The knife just going through like butter. Now look at some of this. I want you to see that moisture still off in that rib. Man, it's just oozing out. That's what you want to see in a good Kansas City rib. That's what the spare ribs are known for. That fat content and that fat. Everybody knows that fat is flavor. Hey, without further ado, let's give one of these a try. Wow. Hey, I know I got it all over me. That means it's a good rib. It's one thing about Kansas City ribs, they're messy, so don't be scared to get in there. Moisture is just through and through. And that's how I do Kansas City style ribs. If you like what we're doing here on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Keep checking out these videos. We're gonna keep putting them out. Keep doing interesting things outside on the smoker and on the grill. Shout out us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you go to HowToBBQRight, you can check out a lot of cool things that I've done on my blog. So thanks for checking us out. See you next time.